Not trying to be funny, not trying to get a laugh. Don't want anybody to have the worst day at their job.
You've got a job as a teacher. Why do you need more money?
And I make nothing. Zero. Zilch.
Guess what, Mr. Krabs? Me and Squidward are gonna go on strike!
Welcome. Hello, Lindy.
Hi.
Welcome, everyone, to the RIVERHAWK Hired Podcast. I'm Marissa, joined by my fearless leader, Lindy.
Hi.
How are you today, Lindy?
I'm good. It's hot,
I know.
but I'm good. How are you?
I'm also hot and sweaty and clammy and
Yeah.
knees weak, mom spaghetti.
Yeah.
That's what my
All those
brain is.
things.
My brain is mom spaghetti today. But we are here to talk to you guys about goal setting. Because Lindy, tell us a little backstory about Adam and that stuff.
Yeah.
It helps frame it all.
Yeah. Framing us up. My husband Adam recently was going to apply to a higher level position, and he was very kind of on the fence about it. Because he's fairly new in his position already that he's in, not super new, but a couple years. And he is wanting to move up, and the opportunity presented itself, and he had people that were higher up than him that were asking him to also apply for this position. And so he was really on the fence. And so he sought advice out from the guy who was actually getting ready to leave.
Oh, I didn't realize it was the guys that he was applying for. That's cool.
Yeah. So the guy was like, well, where do you see yourself in 10 years? What ultimately are your goals? Because you say that you want to say that you don't want to stay stagnant. So what does that look like? And how do you get to where you want to be if you're just going to keep staying in this position? And I just thought that was a really interesting question to ask, because you do get asked that in interviews occasionally. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Whatever that looks like. And most people can't answer that question. And that's okay if you can't answer that question. But if you have a long-term goal, if you say, well, I don't want to be in this position forever, what does it look like to get to the point that you need to get to? And so even if you take that risk and you apply to that position and you don't get it, that's okay, because it lets everybody else know this person is interested, right? So this person wants to grow. This person wants to move forward. And so even as someone, as a director, right, my first thought is, okay, how do we at least help you gain skills? How do we get to a point where you feel confident in your skills to where if you need to move on, you can, or if you want to move up, you can, right? And those opportunities don't always present themselves.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like Adam wanted this big dude job, but maybe just not now. And then he was thrust into it. And so it's like, well, it was your end goal in the
Well, and
so.
He got the position, he ended up applying to it. And what's kind of interesting about that is his boss, there were a couple people that applied, Adam and then another guy, and they wanted both of them on the team. Ooh. And so they ended up creating a new position so they could hire the two of them. So sometimes that happens too, right? And obviously there are adjustments that Adam is trying to make, because he's only been in this new position now for a couple weeks, but it's a learning and growing experience, right? And that's that way with anything. But I mean, he got it, and ultimately, it's one of those things where even if you don't get it, it's okay if you don't get it. You just take that as a learning opportunity.
Yeah. So when it comes to goals, I know a lot of times people try to have a yearly goal, and when we think of goals, it's relatively short term. And our lovely podcast producer Jeremy has provided us with some good sources from the Forbeses, and they talk a little bit about why it's beneficial to have that long-term goal so that you can have that flexibility like Adam had. I wasn't ready to take this step yet, but it is in my plan to get to this, position someday, and then past that, to the next position or this and that and the other. And so like, I'm a firm believer in being flexible and like just, you can go with the flow, but I don't know, like a structured go with the flow. Because you know me, Lindy. If I was just, I'm not a go with the flow kind of person all the time. Yeah. It has to be thought out.
Right.
And so like, there was a survey that was conducted in 2022 that found that fewer than 1 in 3 employees knew how to develop their career over the next 5 years. I just thought that was kind of, whoa. I didn't realize it was that big, and that there's people, that exist that may not know what the next 5 years looks like for them. Right. And so they had some pretty good little things in here about, the things that can happen when you do short-term goals compared to long-term goals, and trying to figure out, where you want to end up in 10 years, in 5 years, whatever it may be. And a lot of the times I think students really limit themselves in knowing how to start or the best way to start. And in this article, it mentions brainstorm, and it's kind of like a duh. Well, we need to brainstorm. But they bring up a really good point of start with, your dream. Start with your dream, and then we can kind of go back from there. I have a lot of students that come into my appointments, and I'm like, what do you want to be? And they're like, well, I think the best thing for me is to be this. And I'm like, okay, but what do you want to be? Because honestly, it's probably a lot more reachable than they may think. And I think that a lot of times we always think that dream careers are so far down the line. Yeah. And I just need to get through school. I just need to get out there and stuff. But I mean, it's all a part of the journey. Like, it's a part of the plan. Yeah. Whether it's like a 30-year plan, a 10-year plan, whatever. But like, think about, what we're passionate about. What skills do I already have? You mentioned skills. What can I improve on? Thoughts on that? Yeah. Well, I think that kind of thinking about like starting to set those goals, brainstorming obviously is the first thing, and being realistic too. Like, I think that yes, dream jobs are absolutely achievable. And like you said, a lot of the time we think that they're down the line, and they're not. But you also need to remember that it's okay if your career path is not this linear thing. I think that people oftentimes think, well, I got this degree in this, so therefore I have to go into XYZ, right? You don't have to. I literally had a conversation about this over the weekend with my in-laws, right? Because there's a girl that's a close friend of my sister-in-law, and she went through this certificate training, and she got into her job, and she was like, oh, this is scary. I don't like this. This is not what I want to do. And she's like, but I feel like I just wasted my life, or not my life, but I wasted a year of this training, when in reality, you didn't waste your time, right? Yeah. It's just a learning experience. So your career path isn't going to be linear. And so being able to set those realistic goals, okay? Well, now you know what you don't want, or ask the question, one of the questions that was in the article is, what's holding me back, right? Yeah. What is holding you back from trying to achieve these goals? Yeah. What are those factors that are contributing to that, and how do you eliminate those? And I think that comes with that brainstorming. It's not just brainstorming what I want to be. You want to brainstorm like the steps it'll take. And if you don't know what steps to take, oh my gosh, we are here to help. Like, that's one of the biggest things we do. We can help you figure out what those steps in that plan looks like. And we can make it as detailed as possible. We can make it as vague as possible. I'm personally a little bit more for the vague, just because it really helps with that, that flexibility. Now, not like a checklist that says earn degree, check. Right. Job, check. It's, instead of like, I want to be the president of the university in 10 years, it's like, okay, I want to make 100K in 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, let's start with something like that, because then that's kind of transferable to so many different paths. And especially because if you guys are students and are listening, you guys are so young. There's so many opportunities out in front of you. And it's just kind of hard to pick which one when it comes to that brainstorming stuff. So think about just like things that you're passionate about, things that you like and you dislike. That's where like our Focus 2 assessment could come in really handy for you guys. Low-key plug. But I liked that it also mentioned as a part of your process after you do the brainstorming. Okay, this is what field I kind of want to go into, or this is how much I want to make, or this is the state I want to end up in, you know, at the end of my plan. Getting that feedback from people, I loved that. I was like, oh my gosh, because it really does help you, and it checks you to make sure that you're not just delulu thinking like, well, I'm really skilled at public speaking, when in reality, like, maybe your peers or mentors don't think you're that great at public speaking. And so it's just something that you can work on and develop, getting that kind of feedback that you can like build upon to get to the point that you want. And when you gather that feedback, you obviously want to like frame it and pose it as a question that's meant to like give you good information, not just like, well, do you like my art? You don't want it to be this whole, there was a good question like, if you were in my position, what areas would you focus on developing? Like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have asked that of my college professors a lot more, because I mean, they see you every day. They could kind of help you like, hey, if I want to be an advertising executive someday, what skills do you think I could develop? What skills do you think that I already have? You know, things like that. I really like that feedback part.
Well, I think it's good to get outside perspective because even when we talk about NACE competencies a lot, right? And we'll probably be talking about them in a later podcast today, actually. But regardless, a lot of students, this is just something that NACE has observed, that a lot of students, when they rank themselves in these skills, they rank themselves as being more efficient in these skills than the employers that actually work with them do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so getting that feedback is a way for you to get some constructive criticism and see from an outside lens, you know, how you work, right, on a regular basis. So getting feedback from colleagues, getting feedback from professors, from your bosses, from family, whatever that looks like, but recognizing biases at the same time. But yeah, that feedback is always going to be great to get you that outside perspective to really see how other people see you working. Because in the same breath of like, there might be things that you're rating yourself really high on that you're not so high in those areas. There are also things that maybe you don't grade yourself as really, really high, but in reality, you actually are like really good at those things, somebody sees you as being really good at those things.
Oh yeah, and it helps get those brain cogs turning. Yeah, it's like, whoa, wait, you think that I'm really good at pulling statistics? Oh, wow, I had never thought about that. Yeah, you know, like just kind of like you said, getting that outside perspective. Yep. And then the mapping it out part is the next step. That we don't get to that point a lot of the times. I feel like I think that we answer the where do you see yourself in 10 years question either as like a interview question like you said, or like on an assignment somewhere. Yeah. But having this little, I don't know, professional journal of sorts, or a PowerPoint, or just a Google Doc, somewhere that's your home base where you can just write out what your goals are.
And revisit.
Revisit it, please, because it's so easy to think about this and be like, yeah, that's a really good idea. But if you're anything like me, it's going to slide off my brain in like 48 hours. That's too smooth.
Well, and things are susceptible to change. Yeah. So like 100%. Being able to look back and go, okay, well, this didn't work, or this needs to change because of this, or whatever.
Like I can't get to, you know, especially, and again, this is something that has to do with that short-term, longer-term goal kind of thing. It's better to have your long-term goals written out so that way you have that ability to adapt to change, because a lot of times whatever is that short-term goal, it's like, well, I wasn't able to, complete this goal because I have this, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. If 2 + 2 is 4. What was I saying? I forgot. I'm so sorry.
Talking about writing down your long-term goals, but maybe a short-term goal isn't being met.
What were we talking about? Sorry, I got a spam risk call and it threw me off completely.
You got distracted. That's okay. We'll circle back.
Mapping it out is really important because we can say all these things in our brains and it's hard to keep up with.
Right.
And having a place that you can go back to, because again, if it's a short-term goal, there's a lot more things that can pop up that will completely take you off track in 1 year. And so a lot of the times, if people don't complete these 1-year goals, they're just like, and they don't keep up with goals because we just keep quote unquote failing at them. You didn't fail at them. You just needed to like restructure it.
Right.
And so with that long-term goal and the benefit of mapping it out of just like, here are my goals. Here are the things that I want to, learn about so I have better skills. And this is the timeline I kind of hope that it plays out in, because there was a good example in here where it talked about if I have it set for a year, what if in that year someone from my team quits and then I have to pick up the slack?
Yeah.
And we've all been there before. And so sometimes that's not a speedy process. Sometimes it takes up your half your year. And so if you gave yourself a year and then you're cutting that in half because you have to pick up the slack, it's just going to lead you to being sad and mad and all of those other things that are associated with not completing a goal, but keeping it open for that flexibility, having it documented in some way, shape, or form, whether it's in a journal, in a random Google Doc, whatever it may be, I just think helps make the flexibility look even more hopeful. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I agree.
There's this little tidbit it has in here. Oh, keeping track on that list, like that, journal, Google Doc, whatever it is, of the skills that you have, but then the skills that you want to learn.
Achieve, yeah.
Because sometimes people are like, oh, have you ever, are you skilled in this software? And it's like, no. You don't want to lose that software. And so maybe having that home base can be a space that you can put those skills that you want to develop in there.
Yeah.
And just, there was another part in here. Yes.
So, I pulled another article because you know how I be. I'm always like, I need all of the information possible. And I come from a research background with my master's degree. So it's kind of a thing that I'm trained in doing. Like, I'm like, okay, I did this, but I also need to make sure that I can explain it from another perspective. Right. So I looked at another article other than the two that were sent, which were great articles. And, there was another one that it had a lot in it that was like even more specific to actual goal setting. So like just tips for goal setting.
I like it.
So if you don't mind, I might
it away.
touch on some of that stuff too. The biggest, one of the big takeaways that I got was SMART goals. So SMART is, all the letters stand for different things, right? So, with SMART goals, it's just a way for you to set goals, and it kind of gives you a guide for certain goals. So like the SMART, so the S is specific or significant. So make sure that goal is a specific goal, or make sure that is a significant goal, right?
Right.
How are those things going to impact you? The M is measurable or meaningful. So being able to have a measurable goal is super beneficial because you can start from square one. And then once you achieve that goal, you can look back and go, okay, it took me this amount of time, or I gave myself a date of this, right? Or I was able to achieve it because of whatever. The A is attainable or action oriented. So having a goal that is attainable. So you want to make sure, like we talked about, that it's realistic. So again, there are certain things that can pop up and it's like, okay, no, this isn't going to work. So you want to make sure that also with the action oriented, right, you want to make sure that you're able to take action, take the steps that are needed for this specific goal, that it's not just like some blanket thing, but there's not a way to take action, right? R is relevant or rewarding. So is it relevant to what you are doing or where you want to be? And is it going to be rewarding, right? If you hit that goal, are you going to feel like you actually achieved something? Right. Does that make sense? And then T is time bound or trackable. So you want to make sure that you can keep track of things, right? And do it within a timely manner. Now, timely can mean 10 years. It doesn't mean that it has to be 5 minutes from now, right? Because there's going to be times where goals change or things change or circumstances change. And so that's okay. Just that's where that flexibility comes in. And some of the cool little tips that it gave that I just loved was like state each goal as a positive statement instead of being like, don't be stupid and mess this up like you always do, right? Do it in a positive way. Like, I'm going to get this done because XYZ, right? Or be precise. So again, dates, times, make sure you can measure your achievement, set priorities. So if you have a lot of goals, what are your most important goals and which ones can you put on the back burner? Or are there goals that maybe they all kind of coincide with one another? So you want to prioritize ones that are in turn going to help you achieve those maybe long-term goals, right? Little goals that help you with the big goals kind of thing. Write them down. We already talked about that. Keep operational goals small and incremental. So you set your long-term goals, but have some short-term goals to help you get to that long-term goal. So that way, okay, maybe I'm not at my long-term goal, but that long-term goal is set for 5 years. So in the first 6 months, what do I need to achieve just in that first 6 months? You're not going to get to that long-term goal, but is this a stepping stone to help you get to that long-term goal?
I like that. I think that's honestly more my style. I like that.
This one I really, really liked. Set performance goals versus outcome. So set goals based on your personal performance, because those outside factors. So if you say, well, I'm going to do this, but then a family emergency happens or something at work changes or whatever it is, right? Then you don't achieve that goal, but it's not your fault, right? And so making sure that those goals are your personal journey, right? That you can personally attain these without outside factors. And sometimes that's harder to do, just based on the nature of goal setting, but thinking in that mindset can help a lot as well. And if you achieved your goal, celebrate it. Like, even if it's a small one, those small victories are so important because they can help you get to the end. And so celebrate those and utilize, when you have achieved a goal, utilize that time to reflect on the process. What did that look like? Because it can help you build that self-confidence. And you also need to think about, okay, was this goal too easy to attain? And if it was, maybe the next time that goal needs to be made a little bit harder. But in the opposite of that too, did this take you longer than you expected? Or was this way harder because it was unnecessarily hard? Then my next goal, I need to make sure that it's easy. This is a big one too. If you learn something that would lead you to change other goals, do so. Change it. So if you learn a new skill or you gain a new skill and then maybe you go, well, things are shifting a little bit because I've figured out that with this, I can actually do this. And I've found that I probably need to pivot to this or whatever that looks like. Make those changes. They're your personal goals.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want. Like
change the whole journal.
Yeah. If you
do whatever you got to do. Cause that was one thing. There was one of the 2 articles. I'm so sorry. Talks about the drawbacks to setting, rigid career goals. Now, that's not to say like the drawbacks to long-term career goals or the drawbacks to short-term career goals. It's just rigid goals in general. You've got to allow yourself that flexibility or you're just going to keep making yourself mad, dude. Like you're just going to keep getting mad. And you got to take into consideration, like you've said, how those outside forces and looking into that, like how I personally performed, not like the outcome. I really liked that. That was very, very nice.
Yeah. Well, and then like one of the things was even like, did this goal cause you to have a deficit in your skills? And if so, what are some goals that we can set to fix that? Right.
Yeah.
So it's a lot and it's complicated, but do what works for you and what realistically is going to help you. And the biggest thing is figure out how you are going to motivate yourself to do these things, because motivation is the hardest thing to get through. Does that make sense? Yeah. And that's with like any goal. Yeah. So I'll use myself as an example. I'm a nail biter and I have been biting my nails for 30 plus years at this point. And so I hate that I bite my nails. I hate this habit. I hate it. And it for some reason, it has been a really hard habit to kick. And so I always have to remind myself, like when I'm watching like a scary movie or an action-packed movie, like keep your fingers out of your mouth. And one of the big things that I've started doing is painting my nails, right? And so even the other night we were watching a really crazy movie and I was like kind of biting on my nails and I was like, pause, your nails aren't painted, paint your nails.
Nice.
And I did, right? But it's finding that motivation. So my motivation is to be able to like drum my nails on the table because I just love being able to do that and sound all, tippity-typity when I'm like, on my keyboard or whatever.
I love it.
And that sounds like stupid motivation,
No.
but or being able to open the salt container to refill the salt, right?
That's a real one.
Little things like that that you don't
one.
realize that you would need nails for, but you do, right? And so finding those little ways to motivate yourself to get to that point it can be really hard because it can be really hard to break habits. And so how can you motivate yourself to continue to break the old habits and form new ones that are going to be beneficial for you in the end?
Oh my gosh. This has got me itching to go write down all my goals.
I know.
In 50 years, I want to be on America's top next idol.
Okay, write it down.
I'm going to write it down.
Write that down, girl.
Write that down.
I'll hold you to it. 50 years. I'll be texting you, Marissa, I'm not seeing you on America's Next Top Idol. So where you at? We wrote this down.
And then I'm going to be like, I have dementia. What?
I know. Yeah. And also failure is okay.
Yes. Be okay with a failure because the goal is just a part of what's hopefully motivating you and propelling you, because we all move a little bit faster when the lights are on. The goal setting is just the light bulb. If you don't have a goal, you're kind of walking in the hallway and it's dark, and so you might move a little slower. You might be hesitant on, where's the door? Where's the light switch? And so the goal, if you quote unquote fail, and then that's a cool thing, it's your goal.
Yeah.
You can make it whatever, whenever. You want to stick to your goals, yes, but Allow the breathable room, the flexibility.
Yep.
Turn the light bulb on so it's easier for you in the long run.
And don't compare yourself to others.
Period. There's a little meme on Facebook, and I share it every time I see it, where it's like, it's two little flowers and they're talking to each other, and it's like, you're growing faster than me, and then the other one's like, well, duh, because we're different flowers. And I'm always like crying and hitting that share button.
But it's true,
It
right?
is.
Like everybody is on their own path and everybody's on their own journey, and there's no like, you set your own expectations. Don't let somebody else set your expectations, especially for like life goals. Like where you want to be is up to you, but don't compare yourself to somebody else, because everyone has different opportunities. Everyone comes from different places. And so there's all kinds of factors that can contribute to that. So you are your only obstacle. So don't think about other people. Focus on what you want to do. Focus on yourself. Don't be afraid to fail, and just go for it.
Go do it. No, that's
Gather
not-
here, go far. For real.
Well, yeah, that's the truth of it.
It is the truth, though.
It's the truth of it. Gather here, go far.
Go far.
Just go far. Okay, y'all. Well, that's all I got to say about goal setting. I really, like I said, I'm itching. I'm going to go write this stuff down, Lindy.
Okay.
All right. I hope you guys out there are also writing down your goals, even if it's a short-term one. So,
Even if it's getting out of bed in the morning.
oh, heck yeah. That's definitely on my list.
Same.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today, guys. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
I'm starting to think all that restaurant experience on your application was a lie.
You wrote Roku resume.
Well, why you do it then, baby Billy? Well, 'cause I'm selfless.